The Marine Corps has somehow tried to cover up the firing of a lieutenant colonel that was part of 1st Reconnaissance Battalion, where right now they're in hot water after it looks like somebody has spilled the beans. The Marine Corps, the elite, the best fighting force, and we are talking about the recon, part of the Marine Corps, so do not get on me about the regular Marines, the conventional force. We are talking about recon Marines, but they are under fire right now as some of the reactions as to why one of their commanding officers was fired, and kind of the message that was sent out, which was not totally accurate. Let's get into this. So it looks like there was a captain named Paul Gainey that was in the Marine Corps at this time as a public affairs officer. Yes, he's not infantry. Don't attack him. We understand it. There's multiple different roles for people in the Marine Corps. Now looking at the story, it is his responsibility to kind of help the command and leadership formulate responses to the public in regards to things that happen, and just kind of ensuring that relationship is there, and that way there's freedom of flow of information that is appropriate with the message, and navigating this landmine area of what we call the media. Now it looks like Paul Gainey was on a camping trip when he got the message that said, "You cannot tell anyone this story." And then that text message was followed up with saying that the 1st Reconnaissance Battalion commander was going to be relieved. Now it was further told that Gainey did obtain why this was, and that was because that there was the evidence, or I should say suspicion, or I guess enough confirmation to say that he was laying his hands on his spouse. Now, obviously, this is something that is a big issue in and out of the military, and we do hold ourselves in the military to a certain level of conduct. You are a Marine 24/7, and obviously this is not part of that. Now, Gainey, as a public affairs officer over at Camp Pendleton, did meet with senior leadership talking about this, where he did try and conduct a appropriate response to this by saying that they should be transparent with this, and kind of come at this message by saying that they are against people that are doing these kinds of acts, and obviously for advocacy and trying to make sure that we have that transparency, and saying that if you have issues, we do have resources. Now, there are resources on base for, family advocacy, family help, if you're dealing with conflict, things like that. So there is truth to this. Now, that's not what senior leadership wanted per this captain's statements, because it looks like they did not want to release this transparent information. Now, they want to say that he was relieved due to loss of confidence, which is usually a generic term that we use for almost every commanding officer when the military just doesn't want to say exactly why. What we end up seeing here is that oftentimes through the Lance Underground or whatever, E4 Mafia, wherever you're at, whichever branch you're in, ends up leaking this information usually to several different areas, and we end up finding the truth either way. But you have to have your finger on the pulse, quite literally, because this stuff will not be publicly pushed out by these official military channels. Now, it does look like that this did blow up in Gainey's face, because I'm talking about him as a veteran in this perspective. Now, I will say that a lot of people do have mistrust for the U.S. military and have mistrust for what type of stuff is being put out by the military. And what we see oftentimes is that these situations end up just blowing up in your face if you let them just kind of settle and fester, as multiple accounts will come into play where people kind of piece these puzzle pieces together. And that's why I think Gainey was trying to be in front of this and make this a little bit better. I will say he was trying to turn a shit sandwich into a PB&J, but the command probably wasn't having it. Again, this is just one side of the story. Gainey then claims that his career was over. He knew immediately that the backlash he received from this, from upper level leadership over at Camp Pendleton, essentially, and he knew everything about his career trajectory was going to change because he saw this instantly. That's because a command referral, which can be done immediately over to mental health, was done, which made him go into a mental health ward for up to 5 days. What I'm kind of confused about this story, where I ask this, is I know that people are trying to cover their careers. I know people are wanting to make sure that we cause as little ripples as possible without the public needing to know certain information. But I will say, if you have a public affairs officer that is trained in this, that is looking to spin this story in a positive way while still giving accountability, while still giving truth, I don't understand why they wouldn't use this message as a leader, because it does sound like he did his job. That sounds like that was an appropriate response. But we'll talk about more of that in the future here. Now, per Gainey's statements as well, it does look like he was educated or informed also as well to start taking down photos of this lieutenant colonel that might bring some attention to the public eye. Now, per this Iron Horse article that's out there, they do actually bring an incredibly good point and the point is that per the Department of Defense Public Affairs guidance is that there should be no deletion. Information will not be classified or otherwise withheld to protect the government from criticism or embarrassment. As the kids would say today, caught in 4K. Quite literally. But let's dive into this a little bit further because the story does twist a little bit. So from the Iron Horse article and various others across Military Times, Task and Purpose, all these different military entities that are covering the news specifically, it looks like there are no official statements that have come out from the Marine Corps, which silence is not good, especially in a public affairs sphere where I'm like, Gainey has made these arguments. Now the ball's in the court of the Marine Corps and you're like, you have no rebuttal. It does bring a lot of interesting facts here where I think even the basics of, hey, we are addressing the concerns of this Marine veteran. We are addressing them and looking into further information. Even the most PC thing would probably be better than nothing at this point, which I find quite interesting. We can ask, do we need more transparency from commanding officers, from higher levels of leadership on what happens in the military? Obviously, there are taxpayers that want to know where their money's going, what's happening, and credibility, and things like that. I do respect that aspect as well. Looking at this specific story, this is a very private matter, which they're saying, according to Gainey, that this was to protect this lieutenant colonel and his privacy. I also want to say at the same time, if he was doing this to his spouse at this point and laying hands on her, what about these Marines that were junior to him? As you guys may or may not know, commanding officers truly do have a total jurisdiction of the welfare and being of all the members that he does have command over. So that's why they are able to have information about their health care and everything. Really, they do have that knowledge and that power to do things like they did to Gainey here to make sure he had a mental health evaluation. Obviously, I can't discuss the topic of him being admitted for 5 days, and that would just be speculation. But I do agree this is a personal, private, family matter. But I also want to say, like, other people could come at this and say, you're a Marine 24/7, and this is not what we stand up for. At the same time, many commanding officers in the past year have been questioned because they look at situations like the Vanessa Guillen situation where there is not much transparency there. So it's like, where does this line start and stop? And that's why this has become such a debatable topic. I do have a question, though, that I think is a critical thinking moment for many of you guys out there. Look at that junior Lance Corporal that maybe got in trouble for doing something like this, or even an E7, for example, across any various military branch. Non-judicial punishments are made public very often across Planet of the Days, other things like that. Also, if you are going to go to a court-martial, those are released every month by every branch. This is all freedom of information that is out there, and if you are charged, you could be seen with your name full blast in 4K being put out there. But I do question, do you guys think that that same level of transparency should be applied to commanding officers like this when we kind of frame it in this way? This does bring a lot of questions, and I think I've made a lot of points here, and I'd like to know what you guys think about this, as this could be dissected on one side or the other. What do you guys think? Leave them down in the comments below. But if you like what we do here on this channel, you can always support us over at patreon.com, where we have a link down in the description below for some special perks and benefits. Also, on top of that, we do here on YouTube have a membership channel button where you can help support us as well, which no one has done in the past about 14 days. So I would appreciate if we got a new member. If you guys like it, please support us here. But as always, if you guys do have questions about this or anything else, you can always hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, or down in the comments below. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.
I'm picking up right where I left off. They're banging the drums and they point to me. I'm only alive when I need to be.